Hey, we're Zach and Fran, and we live in this converted school bus with our two dogs, Steve and Jane, and we've been living on the road for over a year now. And this is just a recap of what this past year has looked like for us. We left November of 2023, and being from Wisconsin, we wanted to book it south as soon as possible. We got married in Arizona, so that was the first place we thought of. We spent a few days at the Grand Canyon and only spent about a day in Sedona, and then we decided to settle in the desert. We did a ton of hiking and exploring in the area, but this is also where we met some of our best friends. And yes, these crazy friends of ours convinced us to cross the border and travel throughout Mexico with them. So we traded in the desert for beautiful beaches for 2 months, and we absolutely fell in love with it. Every single day I went paddleboarding while Zach did some skimboarding, and we even taught ourselves how to surf, which didn't necessarily go well. We also fell in love with all of the marine life. We saw a super pod of over 100 dolphins, we swam with sea lions, and we also swam with whale sharks. My favorite part was watching the humpback whales breach from our window. I loved it so much that I got a humpback tattooed on me. Living in Mexico for 2 months changed our lives. We developed really close relationships with the people we traveled with, and we fell in love with the ocean. We also learned that there's so much more to Mexico than just the resorts. But it was time to leave, and we crossed back into the US, where we found ourselves in love with Utah. We fell in love with the Zion National Park. We did the Narrows with the water this high, and it was just so much fun. And then Bryce Canyon National Park ended up being one of our favorites. It blew us away. It was so beautiful. Around there is one of our favorite boondocking spots that we've ever been in. This was literally our backyard. We decided to save Moab for a different time and went straight to the Salt Flats, which was a literal dream. I mean, look at this. We had gotten seasonal jobs in Washington, so we continued to head towards the PNW. We spent a few days near Hood River. We hiked Dog Mountain and saw some iconic waterfalls, and the food around there was just amazing. And then we ended up at our favorite place, which was the Oregon coast, particularly Astoria, Oregon. And this is where we fulfilled our lifelong dream of becoming a Goonie. Astoria is such a special place, and we were genuinely just so happy to be there. We continued to head north, but before that, we got to be vampires and forks and play around the Olympic Peninsula, which is just so beautiful. The entire Olympic Peninsula is such a cool place. I highly recommend going. Eventually, we made our way to the Baker Lake and Snoqualmie region of Washington, where we set up camp and we became camp hosts at a campground. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I hated being a camp host here. But Washington was beautiful. We got to explore so much. We wanted to put a ton of money in our savings, but we also wanted to beat the summer heat in our bus. That was a success because we were really comfortable temperature-wise all summer. The last few weeks of the work season, Zach's parents drove all the way out from Wisconsin in their RV just to come visit us. We felt really loved that they came all the way out just to spend time with us, and we traveled down the 101 with them, saw Mount Rainier. We went back to Astoria and Cannon Beach, and then we went slightly inward and visited another iconic movie spot, which was Halloween Town. And just when we were happy to be back on the road, that's when everything went south, and our bus ended up in the shop. We were stuck in Newport, Oregon for 2 weeks, but we were incredibly lucky because we got to stay in Zach's parents' RV. It was still extremely hard to be without our home for 2 weeks, and on top of that, we had to pay a ton of money to get this fixed, and we just erased everything that we saved up the entire summer. We finally picked up our bus and we were back driving on the 101 again until we realized that our bus was actually in worse condition. We even had a breakdown and we were stranded on the side of the road at one point. That's when our friends Jake and Felicia drove 2 hours just to help get our bus started again. We finally got the bus running again and we continued to head south on the 101. But because of how expensive the bus repair was, we had to get another camp host job in Southern California. So we had to continue driving south just so we can make it to that job. We took our bus to another mechanic in Southern California, and they told us that unfortunately the previous repair was so poorly done it needs to be redone all over again. So here we are again in California working as camp hosts. I will say we like this campground so much more, and we're really happy that we get to avoid the winter weather everywhere else. So while things haven't gone exactly as we planned on this journey, we are still so appreciative that we get to live this life. Van life tends to have extreme lows, but the highs normally outweigh all of the negatives. But it's all about making the most out of every situation and staying positive. We've seen a lot of beautiful places, and we've made friendships that we know will last a lifetime, and there's no way we will ever regret doing this life. So if you've thought about living in a van and traveling, do it. You won't regret it. It is an extremely special life to live.